the 29th of February 1916, the body of William Patrick Haines was found shot dead. William Patrick Haines was born in 1894 in Warrnambool, a country town in Western Victoria, Australia. William Patrick Haines moved from Warrnambool to Melbourne, and by 1916 he'd gained employment for the Globe Taxi and Motor Company. That particular photo there is of Liebig Street, Warrnambool, around 1916. On the night before the murder, an employee of the Globe Taxi and Motor Company took a booking to pick up a Mr. Lestrange from the Cliveton Mansions located in East Melbourne. During post-murder investigations, detectives found out there was no Mr. Lestrange living at the Cliveton Mansions. You can see by the two maps here, the first being a parish map and the second a more modern map, the layout of East Melbourne hasn't changed much. In fact, the Cliveton Mansions is now the location of a five-star motel called the Pullman and the Park. Now, the car that was dispatched to pick up the passengers was a Unique one. Unique is a French car manufacturer. Their cars were very popular as taxis, as you can see in the first photos, and you would have seen them in some sort of period film. Now, the second one is a Unique touring car. That was the particular type of car that was dispatched on this particular morning, and it was in blue colour. Now, on the morning of the murder, the detectives do know that William Patrick Haines left his employer's depot in Queensbridge, which is where the circle is, to pick up his passengers at 8 a.m. at the Cliveton Mansions, which is where the arrow is. Now, we do know by police investigation the victim left the Cliveton Mansions with two men inside his vehicle. One was tall and the other was short. Then they were sighted at the intersection of Hoddle and Victoria Street, Melbourne. Then at the Kew Cemetery and High Street Road, and then at the intersection of Burke and Doncaster Roads, and then finally where the body was found in the corner at the intersection of Bulleen and Thompson's Roads, Bulleen. There was two men seen walking away from the vehicle. So what happened? Initial reports had the driver had been shot once, but in fact he'd been shot 3 times. In 1916, the crime scene was basically a country lane surrounded by farmland. In the foreground there you can see Thompson's Road, and then in the background there that's Bulleen Road heading north. Now, compared to today, it's a very busy intersection. So what was the purpose of the crime? There was nothing stolen. Initially, police thought there was a dispute over the fare, but there's no sign of a struggle. At the same time, a shallow grave was discovered in Tea Tree Scrub in the southern Melbourne suburb of Clayton. Now, there was a description of 2 men leaving the site that fitted the description of the passengers that Haines picked up that morning. Then police got their first big break. In a shallow watering hole a few hundred yards from the murder scene, there was a suitcase. In the suitcase was 2 masks, 2 false moustaches, and a set of false number plates. This led police to believe that the perpetrators of the crime were planning a robbery on cash being taken to the English Scottish Australian Bank at Templestowe, or possibly cash being taken to the nearby Mont Park Asylum. The most likeliest target was the cash van that travelled up Thompson's Road to Templestowe every Tuesday and Thursday. On March the 9th, 2 men had been arrested at the Flemington Racecourse in Melbourne. John Williamson of Princess Street, Fitzroy, he was 42. Leslie Taylor of Bridge Road, Richmond, he was 27. Now, vagrancy is associated with homelessness today, but back then it was generally associated with petty crime or breaking the law. Right after the 2 men were convicted and sentenced to 12 months imprisonment for vagrancy, the coroner committed them to trial for the murder of William Patrick Haines, as there were a number of witnesses that declared that the description of the 2 men matched those of the 2 men in the car that morning. Detectives had also found in the room of John Williamson a packet of bullets with 6 cartridges missing. And as for Leslie Taylor, he lived in Bridge Road, Richmond. Across the road from him, there was a well-known solicitor by the name of Mr. Lestrange. That was the same name that was used to get the driver to come to the Cliveton Mansions that particular morning. On the 18th of April 1916, Case 179, the murder of William Patrick Haines, went to trial in the Supreme Court in Melbourne. The trial lasted 1 day. The court heard from around 23 witnesses before the jury retired to deliberate a verdict. Before they retired, the judge had instructed them that they must find the charge guilty or not guilty of murder. Manslaughter could not be considered. The jury could not also find one guilty of murder and the other one not guilty because the actions that day were so interrelated. So after about 2¼ hours later, the jury came back with a not guilty verdict. One of the main reasons the not guilty verdict came about was the lack of confirmation on the identity of the suspects. All the witnesses agreed upon was one man was tall, the other was short. Williamson was tall and Taylor was short. One witness claimed the tall man wore a felt hat, while another said the tall man had a straw hat. As for the box of bullets found in Williamson's room, he claimed the box was full when detectives opened it in his room, insinuating that the police took the 6 missing bullets. There was no revolver found in the possession of either defendant. While the solicitor, Lestrange, was across the road from Taylor's house in Bridge Road, Richmond, it was actually 1/4 mile down the road across the road. Nobody at the Cliveden mansion saw anyone get into the car that morning driven by the victim, so that led police to believe it was hailed nearby. So what happened to the parties involved? John Williamson was actually 28 at the time of the crime, not 42 like I previously mentioned. Apart from this particular case, I wasn't able to locate anything else on him. Leslie Taylor continued with his criminal activities to become the well-known underworld associate known as Squizzy Taylor, who eventually was shot dead in a shootout with a rival underworld figure, John Cutmore, in 1927. As for the victim, William Patrick Haines, he was buried on March the 2nd, 1916 at the Coburg Pine Ridge Cemetery. His plot number is 0825. The grave is unkept and basically a plot of grass. So until next time,